Welcome to Genius Panda Virtual Labs, where students and teachers access the virtual laboratory simulations for various science subjects.
Hello, dear learners. Welcome back to Genius Panda Virtual Labs program. In this lesson, you will learn concentration. The simulation we are going to explain today is concentration, and this concept is studied in Senior 3 according to Rwanda Education Board curriculum under Unit 7, Concentration of Solutions. Here we have the objectives of our lesson. At the end of this lesson, you should be able to define concentration, prepare solutions of various concentrations using a laboratory simulation. The lab simulation we are going to explain. Before we explain how the lab simulation works, let's have a look at the key definitions. What is concentration? We are going to discuss concentration, use the lab simulation to show how we can prepare various solutions, of course, having various concentrations. So what is concentration? Concentration is the concentration of a solution expresses the amount. The concentration of a solution expresses the amount of a solute. The concentration of a solution expresses the amount of a solute present in 1 liter of a solution. If you have a solution, for example, of salt and water, the concentration of that solution will be expressing the amount of sodium chloride, the table salt, which is present in 1 liter of that solution when mixed with water. It can be expressed as mass per volume, and in that case we use this unit, gram per decimeter cubed, or expressed as molarity when it is expressed as moles per volume, having the unit of mole per decimeter cubed. And a solute is one of the two components of a solution. The substance we dissolve, the substance we add in a solvent, we call that one a solute. It is always present in a smaller amount compared to the solvent. And here, a solute can be a solid or a liquid. We will see that with our lab simulation. And of course, a solution will be a mixture of that solute and the solvent which is that component which is always present in a bigger amount. We said that if you take 1 liter of water and you add in that water, let's say 2 spoons of sugar, then you make a solution. Sugar is the solute and water is the solvent. And when you mix both, you get a solution. You can pause the video and think about more examples of solutions where we can use a liquid solute or where we can use a solid solute. Here we have the formula of concentration. We said by definition that concentration is the amount of solute per volume of solvent or per volume of solution. So it's given, the formula of concentration is given as amount of solute over volume. The amount of solute is the number of moles per volume. The amount of solute is expressed in moles and volume is expressed in liters. So we get the unit which is mole per decimeter cubed or mole per liter. And when concentration is expressed in mass per volume, we get grams per decimeter cubed or grams per liter. So it's the mass of the solute over volume of solvent or the total solution. Now let's go to the simulation and see how we can use the simulation to prepare various solutions. Here we have our simulation. It's called the concentration. And you can see in this container, we have water. Remember, the color of water is always symbolized as a light blue solution, a light blue substance. So here we have our water, which is the solvent, without any solute. We have different buttons here. I will explain how they are used and what they do. Here we have various solutes. We can have a drink mix. We have cobalt 2 nitrate, cobalt 2 chloride with different colors. We have potassium permanganate and sodium chloride, which gives a clear solution, a colorless solution when dissolved in water. That is the reason why it has this color. So here you can also see that we have a solute which may be a solid or a solute which may be a solution. When you have a solution you want to dilute, you can add some solvent to the concentrated solution and you make a dilute solution. So when you use a liquid solute, this is what you have. And when you use a solid solute, this is what you have. And you use this button to check for the concentration. You can see here our concentration. Initially, it is 0 moles per liter. Why? Because there is no solute. Now let's start with this solute. It's solid potassium dichromate, and we shake. You place the cursor here, and then you shake. You shake. To add some solid, you have to make the left click, and then you shake. A long left click, and you shake. So let's now remove the solute and we start again. We also remove this button and let's add some potassium dichromate. With the potassium dichromate, you can see that the color has changed. Let's check for the concentration. Wow, the concentration now is 0.27 mole per liters. It's no longer 0 because we have added some solute. Now, what happens to the concentration when we add more solute? You see, because we are adding more solute, we are increasing the number of moles, but the volume of our solution is constant. The concentration increases. We keep on adding more solute, the concentration increases, and we reach a point where we get what we call a saturated solution. You can see here it is said it's a saturated solution, and we have the solid particles deposited at the bottom of our container. And anything we can do, it will not change the concentration of this solution because it is a saturated solution. Adding more solute will not change the concentration. You can see the concentration here is constant. If you add a small amount of water, even here the concentration is not changing because still our solution is saturated. You can add more and more and more and more. What happens, as long as the solution is saturated, the concentration will not change. And here there is another button we can use. What happens? This will reduce the volume of the solution in our container. It's release the tap. You can see the solution volume is decreasing, and the concentration is constant. It doesn't change because we are not changing the volume of the solvent or the amount of the solute. The only thing we are changing is the volume of the solution we have already made. So decreasing the volume will not affect the concentration of our solution. We decrease the volume, the concentration of our solution remains constant. Now, what happens if we add some water? On adding some water, you can see that the solid particles are decreasing. The solid particles are decreasing, but still our solution is saturated, so the concentration doesn't change. Let's reduce the volume and we add more water. On adding more water, what happens? Now the solution is no longer saturated. You can see we don't have the solid particles at the bottom. What happens is that as you add some water, the concentration is decreasing. You add some water, the concentration decreases. And as I said, reducing the total volume of the solution doesn't affect the concentration. You see, it is not changing. And if you add more water, the concentration decreases because you are increasing the amount of our solvent. We reduce the volume again, and when we add water, an observable change that is made, you can see as the concentration decreases, the solution becomes pale in color. The solution becomes pale in color. And as I said, you can also use a solute, which is in the liquid form, which is a solution, okay? So you can take a concentrated solution of potassium dichromate and you dissolve it. Let us restart. We use this. Let's use potassium. Here you can change the solute. Potassium, let's say we are using potassium dichromate again. And as we add the liquid, you see the color is changing and even the concentration is increasing. The concentration is increasing. You can see here is increasing. You add water, it decreases. Okay? And you can use this button to remove the solute. When you remove the solute, the concentration becomes 0 and the color of water appears. What happens when we add a solute, like a solid solute, to make a solution like this one, and then we evaporate some water? See the button here. When the solution is allowed to evaporate, what happens? As you evaporate the solution, remember, the solid solute cannot evaporate because it is an ionic compound, but the water will evaporate, which is the solvent. So in that case, it means you are reducing the solvent, but the concentration or the amount of solute is not changing. So that is the reason why the solution will become saturated. And first of all, let's do it again. Here we have the solution, which has this concentration, 0.413 mole per liter. When we evaporate some water, what happens to the concentration? You can see the concentration is increasing. Now it is 425. It is increasing. It keeps on increasing, and now we have a saturated solution. If you keep the concentration as this one, to mean that the solution has dissolved the maximum amount of solute it can dissolve. So it can't dissolve anymore, and the concentration cannot change. So it remains constant. We keep on evaporating, the solution will become more saturated, but with no change in the concentration. It is the same even when you use a liquid solute. So that is all you can do with this simulation. That is all you can do with the concentrations. and the knowledge of these concentrations. But now, let's have a look at how we can use this in our everyday life. Let's take two examples, the preparation of tea and the preparation of a soup. Suppose that you make a cup of tea and add sugar. When tasting, you realize that you have used a lot of sugar. The tea is very sweet. How can you reduce this sweetness? Don't tell me that you will remove sugar, because the sugar has already dissolved. So what technique can you use to reduce the sugar? It's the same as what we have here. Remember, when you add a lot of sugar, sometimes you make a saturated tea, which has some sugar deposited at the bottom. So the only thing you can do here to reduce the sweetness is to add more tea to your more concentrated tea, the one you have mixed with a lot of sugar. You add more tea which doesn't contain sugar, and in that case, just like how adding more water is reducing the concentration, you will also reduce the concentration of your tea and as well as the sweetness. And this should never fool you, because you may think that if I take a lot of soda and mix with sugar, if I take a lot of soda and dilute with a lot of water, that will reduce the sugar you will be taking. It doesn't work like that, because the only thing you are doing is reducing the concentration. But remember, when we add more water here, we are reducing the concentration. Yes, because we are increasing the volume of our sodium, but we are not reducing the amount of the solute. So taking soda and adding water doesn't reduce the sugar which is in soda. So for your health, you have to know that diluting a soda with water doesn't mean that you are taking less sugar. You have to be very careful. Now let's go to the preparation of a soup. You prepare a soup and you find that salt is not enough, and you do not have more salt in the kitchen. What can you do to improve the taste of your soup? A soup is also a solution, just like the solutions we have here. So if, for example, this is our soup and you find that you don't have more salt in here and you want to improve the taste of your soup, the only thing you can do is to evaporate some of the soup, some of the water. You evaporate some of the water. You can see as we evaporate some, we are increasing the concentration. You evaporate some and you increase the concentration. So that is the simple technique you can do in your kitchen. If you don't have more salt and you want to increase the concentration of salt in your soup, you just do what? You just evaporate some water from your soup. So the concept of concentrations is very useful in our everyday life and in other subjects, such as biology. Now that we have finished the explanation of how this lab simulation works and the concept behind the concept of concentrations, if you are ready, now it's time for you to take the quiz which has this code, VID 001007. For some who may be using this or taking this quiz for the first time, here are the steps you have to follow when taking the quiz. You go to the website or panda.xyz, you click on login, you can see the login button here in blue, and then you click on login. After clicking on login, you will click on take the quiz. Take the quiz is here marked with a red tick. And after that, this window will appear this window will appear, and then the code we said VID 001007. You type it here, and then you take the quiz. I hope that you enjoyed the lesson and you will be there for more lessons. Thank you very much.